The California Gold Rush and the Chinese by Nick, Emma, Ryan, and Maddie. One day in 1848, while James Marshall was building a sawmill by the American River, he saw something glittering in the water. He stopped to see what it was, then knelt down to pick it up. It was at that moment he realized it was gold.
When news spread about Marshall's finding gold, thousands of people around the world dropped what they were doing and headed to California. All were looking to get rich quick off the land's supposedly plentiful gold supply. Citizens from all nations across the globe wanted their fortune.
Most of the miners that came were only young men with no experience. But another large group that braved the ocean to go find gold was the Chinese. Most were peasants that had to abandon their farms due to a drought that caused their crops to wither. By 1851, in every 10 people were Chinese. That same year, California had enough people to become a state.
Life as a miner was anything but easy, though. They worked all day, knee-deep in freezing water, had a low food supply, and had to fight off disease as well. And often the suffering was for nothing. Most of the time, miners found little gold and ended up losing money due to ridiculously high prices on essential tools such as shovels, pails, and food. They also gambled all their money away because of con artists that also moved to California.
The lack of money didn't make life at the camps any easier. Because there was no law enforcement, crime rates were high and people were doing whatever they wanted. A woman by the name of Louisa Wilson wrote in her diary, "In the short space of 24 hours, we have had murders, fearful accidents, bloody deaths, a mob, whippings, a hanging, an attempt at suicide, and a fatal duel."
The Chinese also suffered from persecution while mining. As it became more difficult to find gold, American miners were more hostile to immigrants. They tried to make them leave by imposing a monthly mining fee on foreign miners, which caused most of them to leave because they couldn't afford it, except for the Chinese. American miners became more aggravated when the tax didn't drive the Chinese miners out, so they took a more violent approach. They cut out the Chinese men's braids, burned down their mining shafts, and beat the Chinese.
Eventually, the violence became too much for the Chinese miners, and they left the mines, but they still wanted to make a living. Many moved to San Francisco and opened restaurants, laundries, and stores. There were so many in San Francisco that their neighborhood was nicknamed Chinatown, and it is still called that today.
By 1852, the gold rush was over, lasting a mere 4 years. Still, in that short period of time, over 250,000 Americans, Chinese, free African slaves, and many other people from all cultures rushed to California to find their fortunes. And some actually did. For others, though, the gold rush left a terrible legacy behind. Many Tejanos and native California Indians lost some or most of their land to greedy miners. Thousands more died from either foreign disease or brutal slaughters.
The gold rush was a large part of the idea of manifest destiny because it brought Americans and other cultures to the western land that had not yet been explored. It also turned California into the first official state in the West and into our diverse area with many economic opportunities. The end.
Brought to you by Flickr, Google, America, the story of the U.S., History Alive, Creating America.